Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning. And I've got another new shell here today that I'm really excited to see how well it does. A lot of you guys have requested it, and a lot of you guys have also said that you've gotten some decent results out of these shells, especially for what they are. So I'm definitely excited to see how well it might actually perform for us today. Because if it does well, then that's definitely going to be pretty interesting considering what these shells are and the price point that they are, that's for sure. So for the shell I've got here today, I picked up some of these, the Winchester Super X Turkey shells. They are a 12 gauge, 3-inch, ounce and 7/8 of number 5 shot, moving about 10 feet per second. And these are definitely kind of the bottom budget load when it comes to Winchester turkey shells. I think I got this for like $11.99 a box or something like that. So they're still $1 or a little bit over a round, but they're half the price of a Longbeard shell even. And the Longbeard shells are not that expensive either. So if these can do at least halfway decent, these might be a little bit of a shell that flies under the radar for some people. And these are a copper plated shot, and they do have the Grex buffering in there as well. So there's definitely a chance that these might pattern pretty decently for us anyway. And for the setup we've got out here today to run them through, I brought out the Remington 1187 with this choke. This is the Carlson's Longbeard XR 660 constriction turkey choke. And I figured somewhere in the 660 to 665 range is probably a decent place to start for these lead 5s. And we know this Carlson's Longbeard choke here is a good performer. So hopefully this should be a pretty decent combination today. I think it's more so going to be up to what the shells can actually give us than anything else. But as for our test today, everything is going to be the same as usual. I have the turkey target set up at 40 yards. I also have the chronograph, so we'll be able to get our speed and see how close it is to the 1210 that they claim on the box. So let's get you guys set up with the view of the target. I'll take the shot, we'll look at our chrono speed, and then we'll go down and see how they actually performed. I hope that these are pretty good performing shells, considering that they are definitely on the budget side. There's no doubt about that. So hopefully they can give us a pretty decent pattern, but there's really only one way to find out. So let's go over here and test it and see what we can get. Okay, so that shell gave us 1277 through our chronograph. The box claims 1210, so we were a little bit above their claim, but that's not totally surprising considering I do have a 28-inch field barrel either. Chances are they may have tested it out of a 24 or 26-inch barrel, so that's not completely out of the realm of possibility here. But overall, 1277, not really anything too out of the ordinary, but it definitely is a little bit towards the fast end, but that doesn't necessarily mean that these shells can't perform either. So let's go down to the 40-yard paper and see what kind of pattern we actually got. All right, so now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and this is what we got. Now, we do have a dead bird here. There are 2 or 3 down the spine and another couple in the brain there. So absolutely a dead bird. Our pattern might be just a touch on the high side, but it's still pretty close. And I gotta say, I'm definitely liking what I'm seeing, all things considered, for these shells. I mean, remember, these are like $11 or $12 a box, and that's the kind of performance we got. Now, of course, it's no Longbeard shell, that's for sure. But we didn't expect it to be either. But I definitely call this a 40-yard turkey shell, that's for sure, at least from this initial test anyway. Now, we don't necessarily see a super hot or defined core area. It's just a pretty even uniform spread around the main core area of our pattern. Now, as we do get to the outside edges, we do see a couple larger voids, but that's not really anything I'm too worried about being all the way out off the edge of the turkey target there. What we do see right around his head there in the core middle area of the pattern is pretty uniform. And there's definitely no turkey that's going to walk through any of that area right there. There's no doubt about that. So looking at the overall pattern here, it's pretty circular for the most part, really. We might see a couple that are getting close to flyers down there with those pellets, but I'm not completely surprised at all considering what this shell is. But again, for a round that's essentially $1 a shell, which is very cheap for a turkey shell, I don't really have a ton of complaints about that. I did not expect this shell to give us a super hot baseball core or anything like that. I expected it to be a lot more on the open side compared to something like a Longbeard shell, and that's kind of what we saw. But what we did see is a pretty good looking pattern overall there for a very basic load of lead 5s. There's really not anything too special going on here. So for a budget turkey shell, I definitely think these are a viable option. There's no doubt about that after looking at that pattern. Okay, and here's the wad out of that shell, and as you can pretty much immediately see, it is what I believe to be straight up a Longbeard XR wad. I think that Winchester uses the same wad in a lot of their turkey shells, so it doesn't really surprise me. Now, we do see a little bit of unevenness here, but I don't think that was actually due to just the wad flying on its own or leaving the barrel or anything like that. I think it more so has to do with when it hit the ground. It kind of hit nose down and bent some things up, because it did not fly nearly as far as some of the other wads and stuff out of these shells. So I do believe that it probably bent itself up a little bit when it hit the ground. But there's nothing stuck down in there. Everything exited the wad. There's no rips or tears or anything I'd be concerned about. The wad looks really good overall here, I'd say. So I think it did what it was supposed to do, or what it was designed to do anyway, for this shell, in this test anyway. All right, y'all. Well, what do you think about that pattern right there? Definitely not too bad overall, I wouldn't say, considering what this shell is. It's definitely not a Longbeard 5's pattern, but we didn't really expect it to be either. These shells are loaded pretty basic overall, just a wad, some copper plated shot, and a little bit of buffer material, and we were able to get what is definitely a 40-yard usable turkey pattern, that's for sure. So all things considered here, there's not a whole lot that we can really complain about, I wouldn't say. Now, we might even be able to get that a little bit better or a little bit tighter with a different choke. Maybe a little bit tighter choke. Maybe they like a little bit more open choke. I don't know. But for a budget turkey shell, I definitely think we're on the right track, and this was a pretty good starting point for us anyway. So overall, I'm pretty pleased with the results, all things considered here, on how this shell actually was able to pattern. But as always, leave your thoughts in the comments. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you hoping for a little bit better, or thinking it might do a little bit worse? And if you use these Super X Winchester shells, what setup do you run them through, and how well do they perform for you? Let me know all that down in the comments, as well as maybe what other setups or chokes you might want to see these tested through. But at the end of the day, I'd call that a 40-yard turkey pattern. And for a budget shell that's that cheap, can't really complain too much, I wouldn't say. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram, as well as a mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested. But I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.